Orgasmic enlightenment, where the sexual and spiritual come together. I'm Kim Anami, and I'm a holistic sex and relationship coach and a vaginal weightlifter. In this show, we explore all things intimate. I believe that our sexual energy is life force, creative energy, and we can use it to shape our worlds, strengthen our relationships, and self-actualize. I blend the most avant-garde information from neuroscience, ancient sexual practices like Tantra and Taoism, to renegade wellness modalities to show you how to create gourmet sex in your lives. Come one, come all. Sex and children. How do we talk to our children about sex? This is one of the topics I get asked about all the time, and this question becomes even more crucial to couples as they begin to do this work of orgasmic enlightenment. They see and they feel the changes in their own relationships and their lives, and they wonder, how can we present a different view of sexuality to our children than we got? How can we make it so that they don't have to go through all of the deprogramming that we have had to do? Something I find magical that happens all the time is how once people hit a certain level of transformation, they become walking and living ambassadors of this work. It's the well-fuckedness in motion. And it's usually inadvertent. I mean, they just begin to act and put themselves out in the world so much differently that people see changes in them. And they may not know what the changes are, but it's like, what are you doing differently? There is something just different about you. And then the couple or the single will begin talking about it, and they usually can't stop talking about it. I laugh when people come to my in-person retreats and they often tell their friends and their family that they are going on a vacation or a yoga retreat. And then they come back and they are all glowing and well-fucked and transcended. And they now share, well, actually we went to sex camp or orgasm school, and they want to tell everyone. What often happens first with the children of parents who are better connected and having holy fuck style gourmet sex is that they notice something different about their mom and their dad. They are happier, they fight less, they're more easygoing, they spontaneously begin making out in the kitchen. The house just feels lighter and more joyful, and this energy is infectious. The couple is the center of the home. They, as parents, are the epicenter and the fuel source. Everything radiates out from them. If they are in sync and connected, their children, their business, everything is fed by that flow. But if they are at odds and defended against each other, that same energy inverts on them and causes all sorts of unrest and disruption in their lives. Their children often wear this as belligerence, fighting more, being defensive, just like their parents are. Yes, you are that powerful. Your choices and your energy matter. They affect everything that you do, even and especially your children. When the parents are in harmony, the family is in harmony. Often behavioral issues that have not responded to everything from medication to therapy, even though I don't recommend medicating children, evaporate when the parents come together. Your children are the symbolic representation of your relationship. Yes, they are their own beings, but they are infinitely and fully born out of you. So what happens in you happens in them. The other thing to consider is that if you are not educating your children and modeling a healthy sex life to them, someone else will. That will be porn or the cultural messages of shame and violation and unconsciousness, or the school messages of sex will kill you and get you pregnant, now off you go. I know that many people carry a history of sexual abuse, and so because they are so worried about transferring any of that energy to their children, they avoid the topic of sex entirely and they hide from it. All this does is reinforce on a deep level that sex is taboo, shameful, and something to be scared of. Instead, you lead the way. You model love and bliss and the truth of sex, which is that it is a massive energy source and a portal to the divine. This means that to do this cleanly, you need to do your own healing work around sex. And then you can be a clear channel for the truth of what sex really is and what a magical, powerful, ecstatic union actually looks like. Because you live it and it emanates from you every day. That is what you teach your children. Today, we are talking to Mark and Amanda. They have 6 children between them, ranging from age 7 to 22. This is the second marriage for both of them, and so some of these children came from before them. But not only do they have 6 children, they run their own successful business, and their sex life is off the charts and better than ever. I have interviewed both of them separately as all-stars because they have some great and epic and hilarious stories to share, and here I have brought them back again to address this topic of sex and children. These guys really are the well-fucked all-stars of the year. Well-fucked all-stars. Right, welcome our epic well-fucked all-stars, Amanda and Mark, yet again back to share your well-fucked wisdom.
Thank
Hi.
you, Kim. Yeah. Hi. Thanks very much.
All right, so today we are sharing and talking all about sex and children and how we talk to our children about sex. And you guys have some amazing stories that you have shared as I've been talking to you about your evolution and your experiences in general. You had all these amazing stories about how you now model your sex life or your intimate relationship to your children, what they observe, and now how you talk to your children about sex. So has there been a difference now when you've elevated your intimate relationship in terms of how your children see you and react to you versus before that happened?
I would definitely say yes. We've always been very openly affectionate with each other, so it's never been a hidden thing. But I think the kids pick up on a lot more respect around the intimacy that we share with each other, and what used to be, ew, oh my God, yuck, is now, oh, they're kissing again. And the younger ones, if we're being loving and affectionate with each other, like up in the kitchen, they like to come and wedge themselves in between us and jump in the middle, which is a really nice, sweet thing.
To be a part of it. So
yeah,
it's there's a.
It feels good. They're naturally drawn to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they do. They love getting in the middle of it, and they'll even sometimes call out to each other. So if one's in it, they'll call out to the other younger sibling and go, "Hey." And so then we've got a kind of 4-way sandwich happening.
Hey, it's cuddle time. Let's go.
Definitely. And in terms of when we're sexually intimate, it's not that they know exactly what we're doing, but they know that we've gone downstairs and our bedroom is separate. It's downstairs from the rest of the household. That's all that's down there is our bedroom. So if we go down there, I have a 16-year-old who still lives at home, and she's like, if you're downstairs, I'm just never coming down. Like, that's the end. And the younger two, they will stand at the top of the stairs and say, can we come down? Not today, not now.
And that's also been a little bit of an evolution, because I think over the last sort of 2 years that we've been doing the work, and obviously the intimacies, climbed significantly. And as Mandy says, there wasn't ever not a lot of intimacy, but there's constant simmer and connection now, like constant. They have in the early days, they would come down and we were being intimate even before we started doing the work. You know what I mean? And our responses would be what I would describe as culturally driven. In that, no, quick, get out! Don't you don't want to sort of see that? And then as we've sort of done the work and stuff, they've still, from time to time come down and interrupted us at times. And we've just intimately paused and just said, no, guys, we're just, mum and dad are connecting. We'll be up in a second, and usually they're coming down to say, can we watch something on TV or come?
Because I think they know they're going to get a yes from whatever it is that they want.
It's pretty much like they can ask for anything.
It's like, yes. But funny story, we were on holidays and Mark and I were trying a more decadent sexual act, and our 9-year-old daughter came in and had a full conversation, and I just kind of was laying there with my legs, he's on top of me, and it was just,
she was a full
so
conversation.
We answered all the questions, and then we were like, okay, can you go out now? Like
it wasn't we weren't
she couldn't tell what was going on,
but no. For her it was probably a lot like, oh, they're cuddling again, only without clothes on and lying on the bed. But she was comfortable enough to have the conversation that she wanted to have, which was not, can I watch TV? It was something 9-year-old-ish, and then go, yeah, okay, and we answered all the questions, and then yeah, okay, and then off she went. And so yeah, that's certainly evolved over the last 2 years, and now we don't seem to get interrupted. They know that we're connecting regularly, and
I think it's also evolved from a gentle exposure of just intimacy around the house, that where they used to say, stop it, which actually was driven from they wanted to see us kissing, but they would pretend they found it yucky, is how it felt. And so Mark and I discussed it, and we decided that rather than stop doing that in front of them, we would gently expose them to it more so that it wasn't gross, it's not yucky. And with the older ones, we actually do have conversations that the alternative is that you're fighting. Like, you can either see us being loving and caring and affectionate with each other and intimate, or the other option is angry, unhappy,
underfucked. We're really pretty. It's really, really important, I think, for that evolution that we've taken. We've always tried to be quite open and honest with the kids about a lot of things, but certainly when now that they're exposed to it, and we've exposed them to it in an appropriate and kind of loving way, because ultimately we've learnt, because we've both had previous marriages, we've learnt that at the heart of everything, all the children want is for their parents to be together, even and loving. And even though they, as teenagers or as young adults or even as tweenies, they don't show that, and they certainly don't communicate that. When you get past all of that, because we've got older kids, and you talk to them in retrospect, a lot of the challenges and the damage that gets done in a family unit with stepchildren and children and all that sort of stuff is born from them just wanting their parents to be together. So, from that, we've kind of learned and gone, righto. So, we have a relationship now that is, for us, never going to change in a negative way. So for the children that are with us in the house now, we're just giving them everything that they need to see around that. And their sense of security can be very high.
I think what a lot of people get caught up on is that they think that especially because there's so much currently abuse of sex and misuse of sex, that they feel like the safest thing they can do is to protect their children from that, like to never let them know that they have sex and never talk about it, never go there, maybe, outsource that education responsibility to the schools. And if they have to have that conversation at some point, then, okay, we'll get prepared and we'll do it, versus constantly modeling a beautiful, healthy, loving, sensual connection that they can feel palpably, right? So the example of you guys, say, kissing in the kitchen and your children, like gravitating towards that, right? Like that's an energy that feels good. And it's also constantly reinforcing to them, even if they don't consciously understand it, that their parents are in love, their parents are together, their parents are happy, and they provide that safe and powerful container for them to grow within. And so that's the messages that are constantly being reinforced to our children when they see that loving connection expressed, rather than, no, we can't really be that. We can give a kiss on the cheek to say goodbye, but we can't really show deep affection because that's yuck, that's dirty. That's our own internalized stuff around sexuality and the taboo of sexuality, rather than us knowing that we are the examples, we are the leaders, we are the teachers, and they absorb that either through the conversations that we're having and just by our actions alone.
Yeah, true.
I know we had, he's now 21, but when he had his 18th birthday, we had a party here at the house, and Mark and I were hanging with the 18-year-olds. There were quite a few here, and we ended up dancing and having a couple of drinks with the kids that were 18. But our son was telling us after the party that he had friends that were like, your parents are like so cool, they're so amazing, because of the affection that we showed each other and the way that we danced with each other. And even my 16-year-old will say it's different in other people's houses. But
well, we had so our youngest, who's 7, was playing in the street last night, and I got home. I think, I don't know, 6:30, and I was in the car, and Mandy didn't know I was home, but she came out to see what the boys were doing. So he was playing with a kid in the street, and I was on the phone, so we connected visually, and we had a really good simmering day after. We just had a lovely day yesterday. Like texting and on the phone and stuff. So a couple of overwhelming moments together. So, and then I got out of the car and we kissed and connected in the street. And, for us, it was normal. And certainly for Emil, it was absolutely normal. But for the boy that he was playing with, we heard him behind us stop and say to Emil, do they do that every day?
Every time.
Do they do that every time?
Yeah.
And and we had, I don't know about Mandy, because we knew that he'd said that, but we had an instant I had an instant reflex to disconnect, to go, I'm making him question or be uncomfortable, which is again those cultural norms. And we didn't. I think I pulled back, and either Mandy didn't let me, or I got control of my own self, and then just came further in for a kiss. And look, there's nothing overtly sexual about what we were doing. We were simply having a passionate kiss. Just we hadn't seen each other all day, and we'd been simmering, so we kissed as we would do every day, multiple times. And so just to highlight, it's just, we talked about, I think in one of our other chats, Kim, you and I, cultural norms and how they, and you just alluded to them before about sexual taboos and stuff. And, we're not sitting here suggesting that, sex needs to be had on the street and things like that. It's still exactly the intimate, monogamous thing that it is for us, and sensual but it's open and transparent. And, exactly as you described, it's that energy. So our son, actually, our boys generally, they just had so much energy in their whole lives. It's just, they're walking up the street, parkouring off, rock walls and jumping over, it's just insane that, and going to skate parks and riding bikes and surfing and doing all this sort of stuff. And, I think some of that comes from us. Some of that comes from that confidence and level of comfort in our sexual intimacy and our connection. But certainly it was odd for the young man in our street that obviously wasn't seeing that every day.
And that was just a kiss. That was a passionate kiss.
Yeah.
And that really struck him as unusual.
Yeah.
Sad. It was funny for us, but
it made me chuckle, but
Yeah.
I did make me think, so that's not your normal, which
But we know that, but
our little one, he didn't even look up from what he was doing. He was like, they were smashing rocks, so he did look up and was like, went back to what he was doing.
And to be honest, he would have known what was going to happen when I got out of the car, whether it was to the extent more or less than what he saw. He was like, oh, they try and get to me when I get home from work before I get to mum. So they'll run up and give me a cuddle and go, oh, which just I love, and everyone would. And then they'll go, oh, and there's mum. And they'll often say, isn't she beautiful? Doesn't mum look beautiful? And even this morning, Mandy came up to make the kids something to eat, and Emil was like, oh, mum, you look so gorgeous. And it's just, it is true. It's exactly what he said.
And my dress is backless, and he was tickling my back, and I was like, that's really nice, keep doing it. And he said to Mark, come over here, Daddy, and feel her skin, it's so smooth. So there was this I was like, take your time, boys. It was nice. So I think just that overflow of being open to loving and affectionate relationships just helps the whole household get on board with that as well.
And it's different for all ages. It's obviously the 7 and 9-year-olds are, in a certain place, and then 16-year-olds are in a different place, or 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds are in a different place. But, as challenging as I think teenagers can be, and they are challenging, I can certainly step back and look at that relationship that particularly Mandy has with our 16-year-old and say it's quite unique. It still has all the challenges around, teenagers fortunately knowing everything and their frontal lobe developing, and so emotions running incredibly high. But, the fact that Mandy's taken the time to connect with her around sexuality and around, to be honest, loving herself in a way that also can be intimate, not dirty, not, get to know herself, understand her body before she decides she wants to give it to someone else or anything like that, and it's.
She's 16, so she's very intrigued with sex and all things boys and girls and everything in between. We sort of did VKF together. I shared as much as was appropriate for her age while I was doing that one.
And by VKF, I'll just clarify, you mean vaginal kung fu, the vaginal kung fu jade egg salon.
Yeah.
Can I jump in and just say it was probably, in reality, it was probably similar for our daughter to what it was for me to begin with. You couldn't have Mandy do the work and then not notice, it wasn't like, obviously we're at a point where we'd like to give the kids as much of this as is appropriate, age appropriate at a time. But at the same time, for our 16-year-old, she was knocking on the door. She was going, what are you doing? What's happening? Why is this going like this? What are you know what I mean? It was.
She was intrigued by the personal growth. Yeah.
Yeah. Seeing what's happening.
Well, and interestingly, of course, her cycle started for the first time while I was doing vaginal kung fu. So it was the perfect timing to share. In terms of that salon, if I knew that from starting my cycle, I would have a very different attitude towards my cycle altogether. So, which that has evolved over time anyway, but helping her to love herself and lean into that part of your life. And then also, as Mark was saying, just expressing to her the healthiness of getting to know yourself intimately and personally, so that you know what you like and you know what you want and what feels good to you before you begin sharing it elsewhere. I know even our 21-year-old, I kind of embarrass him a bit, but we were at the park on a Sunday afternoon. I was like, what are you going to do for the rest of the afternoon? He said, I'm going to go home, just watch a bit of Netflix. And I said, oh, you're going to Netflix and chill? And he went, no, I'm going home by myself. And I said, mate, there's nothing wrong with a bit of self-love. And so he's like, oh my God. But it's true. Like, get to know yourself. Like,
It is.
I'm a big proponent of self-love.
Yeah, she is.
So in terms of that, like, because some people might ask, all right, so when you were children, I think a lot of people ask me, how did you talk to your son about sex? And I was like, well, I never really had to have the big talk, right? The big conversation, because it was always an open conversation, right? Whether I was having conversations or doing Q&A calls or webinars, like in the living room, and he'd be in the kitchen making smoothies or whatever, like, none of that was ever censored, right? And like I say with you, it's not like you're giving each other oral sex in the kitchen while you're making dinner, but you're not, hiding the love and the affection and that sensuality between you. And so that's always in the atmosphere and the ethers, and they're just surrounded by that. And so if there ever is a question, I always tell people, like, jump on it, right? Like, use that as an opportunity to share. And but really a lot of it comes through osmosis, that whatever you're doing is just so, and the energy of it is so open. It's an open invitation, right? There's a perpetual energy of non-judgment, right? Like, you can ask anything, you can say anything, and we're here, we're available for that. Yeah. And so it sounds like that's what you're saying. Whenever your children do actually ask a question, you're fully open and available for them.
Yeah.
And we do actually just bluntly put it like that. When sometimes they pull away, and we will actually have like a meeting with them and let them know, like, we're here. You can actually talk to us about anything. And the eldest is 22, and then the eldest teenager is 16. And between the 22 and the 16, we have actually said to all four of those guys, they have exposed us to enough that we really can't be shocked anymore. They've done enough things over their teenage and childhood years that it's like, whatever. And sometimes I will jokingly, but there's a little bit of truth in all jokes, we say, but thank them, because you're preparing me for the younger kids again, the 9 and 7-year-old. So what I've done with you guys might not be what I do with these guys on the bottom end of the age group.
And it's definitely not. I mean, as parents, well, even outside of doing your work, I think, well, I hope we all try and evolve to do better as people and parents, or as individuals, and then as couples, and then as parents. But without a doubt, we're not parenting the same way that we parented our 21 and 22-year-old. So, because I mean,
we're a bit stricter.
We were. You're saying, or we are?
We were stricter.
We were stricter. Yeah. We were younger, obviously, and stricter, and we had less skills and less tools, and we were less connected. I guess we had less. Not less connected, but less of the right sort of same energy that we have. It wasn't
the same sex that we're having now, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really in our toolbox, the sex is a massive part for us to work through blockages and difficulties, and then be able to come back and share ourselves differently with the children and share in all aspects, like their education, their work, their business, their play dates, there's a large spectrum from 7 to 22. There's a lot of different things going on in the family all the time. So
yes. Yeah.
So you guys had shared with me how your daughter, I think it was in the original interview we did with you, Amanda, she was like, you guys are always doing it. You're always going at it. And so how did you respond to her?
So that actually came about because she had a friend over, and the friend said to me, when we were at school, if anyone ever wants to know anything about sex, we ask her, my daughter, because she's the most knowledgeable. And she's sitting there and she laughs and she's like, well, it's because you guys are always doing it. Like, it's hard not to know. And then because we talk about it and because of the VKF as well, I was sharing, the breathing techniques and breast massage and self-love and just really open, talking about yoni eggs. And so
it's like what you said before, Kim. You're not planning to have conversations with your kids necessarily. What you're doing is you're creating an open environment where, one, there's a language of love there anyway, and then two, you've got an environment where one of the children, any of the children, can ask the question, and particularly with Mandy, they're going to get a straight answer. Not a rude answer, not a overtly sexual answer. They're just going to get an honest, straight answer around what they're asking. So, and Savannah she's young and she's inquisitive. So when she asks questions, same as our other two children, they get the answer.
So what might she ask? What are some examples of questions that she's asked?
So one thing she did ask was she wanted her breasts to grow. She was like, they're too small. I want them to grow bigger. And I was like, well, where your energy goes is where your growth will go. So it's like, I can teach you these breast massages that I've learned from Kim, and you can do this like every day. So she's actually been doing the breast massage every day and very happily has been blossoming. So that's nice for her.
She didn't ask me, but I know she asked about ejaculate and how you would taste.
Yeah, she has directly asked, like, what do you do? Because I don't want to swallow. And I was like, so that was actually another really nice conversation that ended up being, when it's the right person, it won't bother you at all. Accepting him into your body will not be an issue. But there are techniques that you can use that would mean you don't have to swallow, but also he doesn't need to know that you didn't swallow, because wouldn't that be offensive if you were doing that for a guy and then you were like, that part's gross? So yeah, that was a nice.
And I mean, in the scheme of things, that would lead to not doing it. But also if you're in a position, I guess, as you would explain it to a younger person of appropriate age to have that conversation, to me, like I would explain it to my boys if I was asked that it's appropriate but not necessary for a woman to swallow ejaculate. And if she's not, you would want to ask why, not in a criticism kind of way, but it is what about me am I not doing that's allowing me not to be received by you? And if the woman would say a quite honest response, which is, oh, that's disgusting, I just wouldn't do it, to anyone, then you would simply, to my boys, I would simply just then say, well, I think we need to understand in a loving way why. Well, why wouldn't you do that? What is your blockage around that? Because ultimately, and it's not 16-year-olds, it's probably not 18 or 21, but if you're in a relationship with someone who you truly deeply love, and I'm not suggesting that everyone has to do it, but swallowing your partner's ejaculate and living on a cum diet or whatever, it's a beautiful thing. In essence, we've created same as we've created that setting for our children of love. For Mandy and I, we have all the challenges that normal couples have, obviously, and still do, but we create a cauldron of not being able to get enough of each other, not being able to get enough of each other's, sweat, love, energy, the essence of each other. So yeah, and that's kind of the message that I'd want to be communicating. I know Mandy would to our kids as well. But I can see the cultural norms around those responses that they have being,
Well, in terms of cultural norms, the 16-year-old did say to me that she thinks we have sex an excessive amount. It's a ridiculous amount of sex that you have. And it was almost like she was frustrated. She was like, it's excessive, Mum. And I said, but
it's abnormal.
It's not excessive. It's, for us, we're not planning to have any more children. This is pretty much exactly what I said to her. We're not planning to have any more children. So now we have...
We're not?
No, we're not. We have all this creative life force energy within our two bodies. And if we're not going to create a child with that energy, we can still use that energy and put it out into the world. So if we keep revving that energy up and keeping that energy flowing within our systems, then we can rev that up in the morning and we can go to work and we can use that to create something amazing during our workday. And she was like, yeah, but you don't need to do it every day. So but then I likened it to workouts. So I go into the gym because that gets my endorphins going. It gets me going for the day, and then I feel like I can take on the world. And I said, it's the same with sex. And then it came around to, she was like, well, I don't think I'm going to have sex every day. I don't think I need to do that. Maybe like 2 or 3 times a week. So it's like, well, that's fine. I mean, she's only 16, so these are just conversations and ideas. But I said to her, when you get married, that's the person you're going to have sex with for the rest of your life. That's the only person you can have sex with. So if you don't desire to have sex with the person you're married to, you might as well just be friends with them. What's the benefit of being married to that person? You want to find someone that really lights your fire, that lives within the same passions of you, that you're working together to help. Like Mark and I now say, our motivation is for each other. He wants to help me feel better and I want to help him feel better. So it's that yin and yang, and we just keep pushing and pulling each other along. So, yeah, and I was able to communicate that to our daughter, that if you're not using that life force energy to create a child, you can use it for something else. But also, if you're waiting 3 days to have sex, you've already simmered out, and then you have to rev everything up again and get going again. Where if you keep it going, it really is the yin and yang, and that spinning wheel never stops. It just keeps, and things happen in your life that are so beautiful, and as a result of keeping that energy flowing, that creative energy is just continually flowing through.
Well, as much as we can sort of talk about it, we're fortunately from being Anami fans, we've lived it. We've done the extended sex dates and then seen what happens from that. We've done the sex weekends, and oh my God, we've seen what's happened from that. So
we love sex weekends.
Yeah. Yes.
It's so good.
Well, it's that energy that you're talking about is just, it's
and the kids do know too. They're really supportive of us taking that time out.
And that's been a change. I mean, that's definitely different to what was sort of where they were at, the clinginess or the
annoyed we're going away without them. That used to be, that's not fair. You guys are going to go away and leave us with Nan and Pop or with my sisters or
their older siblings.
And we'll go have all the fun.
And they're having a glorious time when they're with their grandparents and their siblings. So, but there's so much positive energy that comes back. Like we talked about it once before, but we had like a 3 or 4 week absolute external glow from our first from our first sex weekend. Sex weekend. Like it was 3 or 4 weeks. It was, it was, and then we just, and so now they're locked in. Like we've locked our try and, even if it's just an overnight, it's an all day, an overnight, and then an all day. We're making sure we get that near enough to 36 to 48 hours as a minimum of
alone together time.
Yeah.
But just to be sure, we do still take the kids on holidays as well. We don't. We haven't booked them out and not taken the kids.
They don't miss out.
No, they certainly don't miss out.
No.
So what you're saying though is that they're feeling the energy of when you come off of these extended sex states, and that glow, that bliss, whatever, it feels really good. So even if they can't articulate exactly like, oh, they're coming back and they had lots of sex and things are good, something, they do register that something really positive is coming out of that, of your time away. And whether it's your, like, your connecting time within your home, or you going away and coming back, like on an unconscious level, at least they register that something really amazing and beautiful is coming out of that benefits them. And so there's a shift, as you're saying, in them supporting these activities, even if they fully understand, the mechanisms. And I love that you do use those opportunities to explain the mechanism, like the way you talked about describing sex to your teenage daughter as this energy source and a power source, and this is how we fuel our lives and create our lives. I mean, what parent has had that conversation with their children? Very rare. And so I think another thing that you shared that I heard is that a lot of the dominant messaging around sex is like casual sex, incidental, like having sex with people you don't really even care about that much is really normalized. Right. And so I think that for people coming at a more, we might call ourselves like liberal perspective, it's like, no, you have the freedom to go out and do, like, that was the messaging I would have received, like coming into my young adulthood and the like, is like, you have the freedom to go and do these things. Like, it's really this moral judgment that is holding people back from free sexual expression. And then realizing that, okay, you can go out and have random, casual, meaningless sex, but that's not the best use of that energy. So from a strictly energetic standpoint, not a moral one, right? Is this experience rejuvenating, blissful, ecstatic, transcendent, transformative? Does it make you a better person? And does it change your life? That's always my barometric question. And if not, then you're, quote, doing it wrong, meaning there's something about who you've chosen or the way you're having sex. If it feels guilty or shameful or negative or depleting, then that's a negative use of that energy. But I think that the messaging, that some of the dominant messaging in the culture is that casual sex is totally fine and good, and all the cool, liberated people have it. And so I think that's, and so to convey a message that's more about the conscious use of that energy as a creative power is wonderful to be able to get in there, because that's, to me, that's really the essence of sex, the truth of sex. And it's just been marred and obscured with all of these other cultural taboos and myths and misinformation.
Which have probably led to that, to that environment where you're saying, in theory, casual sex is okay, but it's not giving you, as you say, the life force, and that comes from all those cultural cultural bias and all that sort of stuff. So, and as parents, I think the reason we're talking in the way that we do to our kids is so that they do have a different perspective. I mean, the last thing we want is our children going out and having casual sex or irresponsible sex or things like that. And the most thing we want is for them to find someone that they truly can connect with and start laying the foundations for what, obviously the person they're intimate with, if they're intimate at 16 or 17 or 18, and I prefer it to be later, but whatever it is, that's not likely to be the person they're going to spend the rest of their life with. Like, generally, people don't fall in love and spend the rest of their life with their 16-year-old or 18-year-old partners. But if they've got this foundation of understanding what we've now learned sex and intimacy and that energy is all about, if they can start that at that age, that will redefine very much their life, their challenges, their opportunities, their connections, their relationships. But I mean, not even just their intimate relationships, but if you can start being, essentially a well-fucked human being from 17 or 18 or 19, I mean, the effect that would have.
When you understand the deeper meaning of a well-fucked person.
I'm meaning that cauldron of positive, connecting energy.
And that's why I really encourage all the older kids to get to know themselves, because if you know yourself intimately, it's just so much healthier and easier to meet someone that's on your level if you already know who you are. Or if you don't know who you are yet and you're out there looking for somebody else, I think you're not sure who you're actually looking for anyway, because you still don't know who you are. So, and I have actually had some very cool conversations with the older three that when you do have an intimate connection with someone, you get to take some of that person with you because you have this energetic exchange. So when you're going to have an energetic exchange with someone, a sexual exchange, that it's not just about protecting yourself with condoms and protective sex. It's also check what you want to share. Like, is that energy something that you want to take with you into the next week or the next month, or a little piece of that connection from that person will stay with you for life? It will reset something in your body. Your body's talking to you all the time.
Well, it would surely the work in young people, which is, and I know you've been petitioned to do things for children or for younger people, but arming them with this kind of information and knowledge, surely it would arm our children to then not be in relationships which are not equal, not be in relationships where they are being dominated by a partner, or, and I don't mean abused necessarily, but I certainly do, toxic. And that can be both ways. That can be, I'm with an underfucked woman and she's nagging the living shit out of me. So that's toxic. So one, address it, deal with it, work on it if your partner is, but even from a young age, knowing yourself, knowing what your energetic exchanges are providing, it surely gives you the tools and skills to go, well, God forbid my partner hit me. That's not okay. I'm out. This is, do you know what I mean? Like it's all those, it's kind of those core fundamentals that, because from everything you see and read, you don't know your partner till you know your partner, and then they potentially do the wrong thing. So essentially, with all of this love and energy and connection, you kind of can't be in that relationship. You know what I mean? The knowledge and the energy wouldn't allow you to be a part of that.
And then if you know yourself well enough, you're strong enough to let that relationship go.
Correct.
Because you've done the foundation work on yourself. So.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is a really great argument for why it's so important to be open and transparent and truthful about sex, is because when we grow up in an environment and we live in a, overall cultural worldwide environment of so much obscuring and, misrepresentation about sex, is then I think that our own internal compass gets waylaid. And so when we're then in a relationship and we're trying to work our way through it, our intuition is fucked. right? Like it's not even accurate anymore because we've taken in all of this stuff, this programming around sex and intimacy that it's really difficult to hear our own inner voice and our own inner truth. And so I love that, this whole message here is that as parents, we model that. And the more that we have done our own personal work and our own personal block clearing individually and as a relationship unit, we are much more clear channels for that truth and for the true power of sexual energy to exist and emerge and funnel out from us. But then we're also showing that to our children, that we're trying to get them back to their own internal center of who they are and what sexual energy is for them and in them. And what you said earlier, like wanting them to be well fucked, and I'll just clarify that too, is that my definition of well fucked is that that's somebody who's truly owning and inhabiting their sexual energy. They're clear on what that is. They're using it consciously as a creative power and an energy source in the universe, right? Doesn't mean that they're having lots of humping, right? Like it's not they're having partners or having multiple sex like all the time. Sure, they might be having a lot of sex. You guys have a lot of sex, but it's the way that you're having sex and the way that you're using sexual energy. And that's what we're looking to cultivate in our children. And so if they have that foundation, then they can go out into the world. And the examples you gave, if they are exposed to toxic people, they do start to enter a toxic relationship, then they'll be much faster to eject that. Their system will just be so, be so anomalous to them that they will just eject it and walk away from it very quickly. But people who grow up with so much programming, and especially the parents, if the parents are a walking interference field, if the parents have not done their work intimately, sexually, all of the shit and the unresolved trauma and baggage that they have is literally just sitting in the ethers. That is what they are passing on to their children. That is their genetic material, their gifts to their children. So their children will be in this fog and haze. And then when they step out into the world and into relationships, they'll be operating at a massive deficiency because they're bringing in all of this interference. They're like I said, a walking interference field and unable to connect with their own truth. And so much more easily able to get stuck in negative relationships, toxic, damaging relationships that are only going to reinforce all of these negative beliefs and ideas and experiences that they are wearing and living.
And as you often say, you don't know what you don't know. So until you know it. So I'm very open with it, and Mark does too, but we often say to the older kids, actually even to our younger two, but with regards to their friendships at school, but we tell them, just be really honest, just say what you want. And if that person is not into what you're into, if they don't want to do what you want to do, then you don't have to stay with that. You don't have to be with that. But also, especially to the older ones, don't portray yourself to be something that you're not to try to win that person over, because that's not truly who you are. I know even the 16-year-old recently had a boyfriend. They've since broken up. But she didn't like to eat in front of him because she wanted to appear, I don't know, teenier or smaller or, more dainty. She didn't like to eat in front of him. And I picked up on it and I was like, why don't you eat? And she went, I just don't like eating in front of him. And I was like, you don't want to be that girl. You don't want to be the one that can't eat in front of her boyfriend. But also, it's not that he might not find that attractive either. Like maybe he finds a girl who eats a big burger attractive as opposed to little teeny tiny bites.
I know I do. I find a girl who eats a burger.
Your smile.
That's just like, make me a burger.
So yeah, it was just about just honor your truth and be who you really are, and then you can more quickly move through to the positive stage, or you can realize that you're not right for each other. So
can I, something you said before, Kim, I want to add to it. Like, Mandy and I can't validate your work that you do honestly enough. So for us, I guess the life change has been enormous. So I say a complete thank you, and that's why we're so comfortable to come on and talk to you about these things. You said before about, as parents, we carry around a lot of shit, and Mandy and I have our own shit, and we've absolutely, in the years gone by, carried it around and transferred it to our children in various formats, whether that's a sexuality or sexual energy thing, or whether it's just your own childhood upbringing and things like that you transfer. So what I found interesting is that I talk to people in our network, in our circle, who are open to what things that we're doing, and we say, look, these are the things, and we've discussed it today, these are the things that are being transferred to our children now. Like, we've got this open, honest connection, this leaning into one another, this leaning on and into one another. So we lean on each other all the time. If I'm stressed, Mandy will help me. If she's stressed, I'll help her. And usually that's around sex, but that's not what it's about. It's about helping and leaning in and loving your partner. So you say to people who have a degree of openness to it, what's happening, which is extraordinary, and they go, that can't be right. I described a story one other time where Mandy's at the table and she's struggling to communicate with someone in her family, and I said, what you probably need is my cock in your mouth, and that'll clear your throat chakra. And she's like, yes. And we went downstairs, and so that happens, right? That happens, and people are like, no, that doesn't seem like it would happen. Yet,
well, your friends were like,
my friends are like, no, that doesn't seem like it would happen. But I'm not making the point about it. My friends not believing that, because it sounds like, dear Playboy, this happened to me. But no, I have a serious point. But we know that our negative shit transfers to our children.
Yeah.
Like, we know that, and unfortunately, I didn't have exposure to chronic alcohol or anything, but we know that for parents who are alcoholics, often the children will become alcoholics, and all of that sort of stuff. So we know, if we're open, that we can see all the negative stuff transferring like that. Bang. We know that happens out there in the world.
Well, and in reverse too, sometimes the kids might be funky, like misbehaving, playing up at school, something's going on, and we will look at what's happening for them, but we'll also look at what's happening for us and be like, okay, so is there something we need to shift? Because it's the dynamic in the family. Like, I talk about the yin and yang between us, but there's also us as a unit that shares with the children. And so if something's not right between Mark and I, it often shows up in the children
as well. But if that negative, if we can understand, and we do, and it's documented, the negative would transfer, why would it be so odd to think that the positive doesn't do the same thing? I mean, you and I know it, we know it, and obviously a lot of well-fucked couples, and they know it, but but we only know it because we've done the work and
continue.
That's what I was just going to say. Took the words out of my mouth.
Sorry.
You got to do the work. This is not some bullshit romantic couple that just happens.
Well, it's also not an 8-week makeover.
No,
it's not a do this 6-week course and you'll have the perfect body. It's like, it's not that. It's learning the tools and then using them all the time and keeping the communication open. And then when you do that and you have this clean slate of a relationship between the parents, it just is a really open family unit where I feel like all our children feel like they can come and talk to us about anything, really.
But we still have all the parental challenges of kids. So,
yes, please don't think it's a smooth sailing, easy ride.
Our youngest will sulk when he doesn't get what he wants. Our next youngest, who's a beautiful girl, she'll want people to play the way she wants to play. all the time, just all the, not that that sounds like a big challenge, but just there's lots of challenges that happen. You're so much better equipped. So they all still happen. And Mandy put it perfectly before, when there's something showing up in the kids, we address it, but the first place we then look is between us. And it's not always something between us. It's not. So, but all I'm saying is that it's taught us to go, okay, is there something going on between us? And then if there is, then we fix that. We connect on that. We alchemize.
Yeah. Well, I think the children are the expression of you guys, and you are the center unit of the family. And so your energy, you are the epicenter. And so what happens within you reverberates out, either negative or positive. So, Mandy, you were sharing, what's that?
Oh, I was just going to say, doing the personal work on ourselves has taught us to be able to look and use that kind of language and help the kids to look within themselves as well. I know the older kids now journal. Our oldest son carries some crystals with him. He's done a few self-help courses, like 30-day challenges of his own. They're all really into their fitness and looking after their bodies now.
And I know you've got a question, Kim, but I just want to quickly say one of the things that's also changed for us parenting, because it's now what we do in our work with each other, is we don't try and solve each other's problems. So, and that's transferred to our parenting. So, for our, we love our children, more than anything. And so, as if they've got a problem, we're strict and we're disciplined, but at the same time, you want to solve that problem. At a certain point, same as for each other. If I come home stressed, if I don't communicate with Mandy what it's about, because it could be stressed with something that's happening at home, very rarely, but normally it's stress related to work or finances or something like that. So if I don't communicate that, she can love me through that for a day. And if it carries for a second day, she can generally love me through that for a second day and help me, make me the food that I like. And, and then for the third day, it's like, get the fuck over it. Like either fix it, talk to me and let's alchemize on it, or, in a loving way, I'm saying that.
And do the internal work.
And it's the same for the kids. We used to, as a male parent with male children, if my son falls over and I don't think it's significant enough for him to cry as a young child, I'm like, no, come on, mate, suck it up, let's go. And all I'm teaching him to do there is just push that emotion down. Now he might have had a fall, and completely unrelated to that fall, he's got emotions that are now coming up. Completely unrelated, but here's the avenue for him to channel that emotion and get it out. So now I just say, and that's 100% from this lovely woman that I've got that skill now. It's and the work, but it's what are you feeling, mate? I said, is your scraped knee that sore, or is there something else going on? No, it's the knee. No, it's something else. I don't know what it is. And I'm like, great, just let that out. Just let's go. Let's let that out.
And usually whatever crying noise they're making, we'll make it with them to help. Like when you're birthing and your doula will come along and do the same moaning with you. So we'll do that sort of thing with the kids. If they're sobbing, it's like, oh, yeah, that's it. Like, let it out. Yeah. Just,
and it shortens it.
It's really good.
So when I look at what we've done in the past, where I've got, no, suck it up. For 15 or 20 minutes later, they might be going, because they haven't been able to experience the emotion, and it might legitimately have been super sore, but we all know that there's always other stuff going on in our bodies and our mind than what's probably showing up right now.
Yeah, I think it's because you make us work so hard through our blockages.
Yeah.
That we're now like looking at our kids and trying to provide the least amount of blockages that you have to work through. So
as parents, you're going to fuck it up. So you're just trying to just trying to
There's little things. They're like, yeah, just feel it. Just go with it, feel it, let it out.
And now, do you feel better? And it's like, yep, off we go. You know. So that's been a beautiful shift.
I love that. So you were sharing, Amanda, about doing pole dancing classes, and you were telling me about that. And then you shared as well that your 16-year-old daughter has been doing them with you.
Yes, she loves it. So she was playing up a bit at school, to be honest, and I wanted to start pole dancing. And she's just reached an age where she wants to pull away, but she also still likes me. So she's like a bit too cool, but also I still really love my mum. So I was trying to come up with ways that we could do something together. And I really wanted to try pole dancing. And I just said to her, look, I really want to try this pole dancing and see if I like it. And she was like, oh my God, I would love to do that. Can I come with you? So that's become a weekly thing that we go and do together. We've ended up
Mother-daughter date.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Creates an incredible energy too for them, like for
actually,
both of them. It's
and on
really
on that first lesson that we went to, there was this pivotal point in the class. I know I've shared with you earlier about it, but I now, as a result of doing the Well-Fucked Woman, I really do have, I've learned to care way less about even what I think of myself, and I really don't care about what other people are thinking of me, because I've now actually realized no one's thinking anything. They're just actually looking at themselves. So, but also I used to judge myself quite heavily. So we went along to this first class together, and we were both really nervous but fun, and I wonder what it's going to be like. And we get there, and there's women with heels that are like 10 inches high and these little booty shorts and crop tops, and we rock in our athletic yoga gear and no heels. And there's this point partway through the class where we both looked at each other, and I said to her, I could either cry because I feel like I really suck at this, or I can just have a chuckle and keep going. She's like, if I start crying, I won't stop. And I went, okay, so we're just going to laugh and we're just going to keep going. So we did.
Did you have that conversation in the class?
We actually had that after the class, but it was we did have a little chat, but it wasn't about crying during the class. That was
because I was trying to make the point that, interestingly, two individual women, one 16 and one slightly older, had an identical experience in terms of getting to a point in a class where they felt they weren't doing it as well as they wanted to, and they could have gone one or two ways. They could have lent into the negativity and cried and then never gone back.
Yeah.
Or they could have just gone, you know what, it's day one, I'll have a chuckle at how silly I look, or I think I look, and then I'll just keep going, which is so much better.
And what we actually did was, I looked at her, we were trying to learn this spin around the pole on one leg, one arm attached, and you spin under your arm. Anyway, I looked at her and I was like, do you get it? And she went, no, I don't. And so we both laughed and then went, okay, well, we'll just keep going. And so that was that moment. And it was after the class that I was like, I was about to start crying. Like, I felt really hopeless. And then laughed and kept going. And now we go every week.
And they love it. And they're amazing at it.
And we come back and we think we're so good. We're so good at it. And we ended up getting a pole at the house, which has turned out to be her fitness routine for her. That's her fitness activity. We've always tried to encourage her to do something. So
not all the kids really, to stay active.
But she's probably been the most challenging active-wise to get moving. But the pole has taken away all challenge. She absolutely loves it. And I think it's a really good age to get into something that's getting into your body. Like, you have to really be in your body, but it's also so fitness driven. It's really hard fitness work. So I'm selling pole dancing now, but it's
Pole fitness.
Pole fitness. But emotionally and sensually, I think it's a really nice activity for her to be doing at the moment, and that we can share it together and just have fun. And
it does both those things. Gives Mandy and our daughter another connection point, but also when she does it on her own, she's again getting to know her body. She's understanding it's a sensual dance, so it's an energy that's when used correctly is just an alchemizing her own positive energy. She's a different young lady when she's done pole dancing for a period of time. So it's good.
Different in what way?
Less teenagey for a period. So she's not in her phone, she's not on social media, she's at that point. So and then she's energized. So she's physically done activities, so she's got endorphins and dopamine, and then she's also done it in a sexual way, and I don't mean that sexualizing, but it's a sensual kind of.
Sensuals, yeah.
So and I'm sure she feels that she looks good doing it, because I'm sure she does.
She does.
I'm of course not allowed to go in and watch, but ultimately she looks great. So she would come away from that.
You feel great, yeah.
Yeah, well, Mandy came home. I'll just say Mandy came home the night before, after doing a class, and I was sitting on the lounge. Normally I'm at the desk doing work, but I was sitting on the lounge. She just came in the door, jumped up on the lounge in my arms, and went, "Oh, this is awesome." So our daughter would feel the same way. I would say it just blew Mandy up in the most positive way.
You do feel good. If I can articulate, though, the teenagey, what Mark feels as teenagey is the lack of communication, the kind of stereotypically speaking, the grunting, the just looking at your phone, bit of the attitude. When we do something together like pole dancing, or Mark will play soccer with the boys, or we'll go out and play frisbee or have a game of cricket in the street, any of those connected activities as a unit or one-on-one, when the phone gets put down and they open up and they blossom. So the less teenagery is the
less of
talking, smiling, the eyes are open, the head is up. It's just and embodying themselves, I guess. Yeah,
that's what I mean by less teenagey.
So do you have any other specific stories you might like to share about your children and them, your sexual energy, or them asking you things, or like walking in on you, like anything that just illustrates additionally what we've been talking about?
I think the 7-year-old, my son, he thinks women are beautiful. And I think that comes from Mark showing how to treat women. He's always been very big on chivalry. It's like, it is not dead. It's definitely not dead. So he's always taught the kids, open the door, put the jacket on your lady, like pour her drink. Just the little things they're really romantic and they're really nice. And just coming home with a bunch of flowers, or taking the kids in the street with a pair of scissors and stealing flowers from the neighbours to bring them back to mum is very romantic. But it's doing the nice things. And I really notice it, especially in our youngest one, that he will be really, with me, just very touchy, and you're so beautiful, Mum, and really you've got such soft skin, and he just really appreciates feminine beauty, which is.
And I kind of hadn't noticed it until Mandy was talking about it then, but he and I have just conversations about Mum, Mandy, and
things like who he's going to marry.
How beautiful we both find her. And how lovely she is in all the normal mum kind of ways. Mum's a great cook, and Mum does everything, so well for us, and Mum loves us so much. And
He put on my Mother's Day card that you are my most favourite person in the whole world.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's so sweet.
But it is
just really open-hearted and loving. I'm sure lots of mums get those messages on Mother's Day. But
and all mums, you know, they deserve it. I love that he's kind of, I can see in the conversations that we have that he's forming, and I'm sure our younger daughter is as well, they're forming what they now frame up, exactly what we were saying really earlier on, you know, by osmosis, they're framing up what they're now looking for in their life partner. And even though it's not, you know, we're not pushing that at all, but those conversations, which are just open, loving conversations about their parent, it's creating that framework. You know, their expectation on what a relationship should be like is that, you know, there should be open and lots of open, loving, kissing and connecting. You know, we will ask the kids to be quiet so we can finish a conversation that we're having, you know, when it's important. And for those awesome parents out there that have got young kids, you know how hard that is, because you'll get interrupted every second of every day by your kids asking for stuff. So, you know, and we do get interrupted, but we do, you know, so they're seeing this. They hate that, being asked to just wait a second. But sometimes this conversation and connection is more important at that time.
Has to come first,
you know, so we're teaching them that. They get like 95% of the attention, and then sometimes 5% has to be, you know, and I think a lot of parents, sorry, not a lot of parents, us as parents, that wasn't who we were 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 9 years ago. You know, it would be, okay, yeah, hold on. What do you need, darling? What do you want? And then it's, but, you know, and that's sending a connection message to one another. And as much as we love those little people, you know, from time to time, this comes first.
I know in terms of disciplining, if there's you know, sometimes when one child is more annoyed at one parent than the other, I will then use language like, please don't speak to my husband like that. We create a real respect for each other, that it's not, don't speak to your father, it's please don't speak to my husband, to my love, to, and that has really helped to see a different respect for each other, that it's not just mum and dad. And it is all of those roles. It's kind of validating that role. It does. It really, that one does help. And I know our 21-year-old boy, we work with him as well, and as a result get to have some really fun times all throughout the day. He's the only one that actually comes to the office with us as well, so we get to spend a bit more time with him than the others. But I don't know if he's fallen short of actually saying he wants what we have. Has he actually verbalized exactly that?
No, I don't think he's actually said that. But it's very clear that you know, because I mean, as the kids go through stages, you know, and certainly teenage years are tough on the kids, because they've got all this stuff going on for them, finding out who they are and all that sort of stuff, and then they roll through that. I think the beautiful thing is that all of our children, to degrees, admit openly or even to themselves that they see the value in what we have. You know, you know, and our 21-year-old has, as Mandy said, probably the most openly kind of gone, what you have is kind of the right thing. You know, you guys, you're not perfect, no one's perfect, but what we see you guys doing is the right kind of relationship. It is the right kind of connection. And so we just keep doing the work, because all you're doing is then you're leveling up to another level and leveling up and leveling up. So, but all the children feel that relationship is, and it's not all roses. It's, you know, there's still all the challenges, but they're looking at it going, well,
they pretty much have articulated that it is, all of them have at some point said our relationship is different to other ones that they have seen, whether it's friendships or ones that they're exposed to themselves personally. But they're like, and sometimes it's like what you have doesn't actually exist in the outside world. They're like,
that's not normal.
Yeah.
We know it does.
And then we try to express it can be normal. It can be, like, you can have it. It's achievable. It takes work, and it takes work on yourself so you can find that person for you that is your soulmate. And then even when you find that person, you still have to keep doing the work. It's not, like I said before, it's not the 8-week course and then you're done. It's a continual.
You absolutely have to maintain the focus on it. We let our connection dates and our extended dates slip in the last kind of, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks or 8 weeks. Hadn't changed how frequently we were connecting or having sex, but certainly it, and
we got busy, so they were shorter.
Yeah, we got busy and they were shorter and stuff, and we just noticed we weren't connecting, and we kind of noticed that in certain interactions. It wasn't massive, but it was definitely there. So, we've reverted back to now, locking in connecting dates, during the week, and, locking in extended sex dates. So, it's just you keep, and funnily enough, we're back to, we're actually doing it together. We're back to doing sexual mastery for men. Now, I know that's a men's course, but it's great for Mandy to see what I'm doing to try and.
It's great for Mark too.
It's great for me. It's great for me.
That I'm doing it.
But, it's that feedback. It's I'm getting feedback on the other side of it. I mean, obviously we get feedback during Sexual Mastery for Men from you, Kim, which is great. But it's a bit like, when you're pushing against something, when you're doing the work, by Mandy doing it, she's the backside pushing against it as well. So I'm getting to see both sides of it by us doing it together. I'm not saying everyone has to do that, but that's just us circling around and doing that work again. So
Excellent. I love your guys' commitment. The proof is always in the pudding.
We love your work.
we really do. Yeah.
I mean, even this morning, we've set the kids up. They've got some paper craft activities. They've got snacks and food, and made them a hot chocolate, which is something special. But we've been talking this whole time and we haven't heard from them, that's just another level of respect that they understand. I mean, they're a little bit old, like the youngest now is 7, so different to when they were 2 and 4.
Yeah.
We would not have been able to have this conversation, but now that they're a bit older and
we wouldn't have been able to have this conversation without being interrupted.
Yeah.
More than likely. Which still would have been okay.
But I think that just also illustrates the respect that we've cultivated, because I've asked them to not interrupt because this is an important meeting that we're having, and there's probably paper everywhere and food, but
is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
I don't think so.
No, just do the work.
And thank you for the work that you keep putting out. It's my Friday mornings are my favorite, because that's when your podcast comes out for me. It's Friday morning in Australia mostly. So I'm like, what have we got? And I like to go for a run and you fill my whole hour. I love it. So keep doing that.
And we always get something. There's always something that we pick up by listening and circling back around. So again, thank you. Because I don't think it's easy work that you do in terms of communicating what you're putting out there. So thanks for your bravery, and thanks for doing it for us. So
my pleasure. Thank you so much for letting us into your world and sharing all of this so that you can be a wonderful example and inspiration and beacon for other people, to really show them that this is what this kind of this is the fruits of your labor. And then these are the reverberations that it has. We've already talked to both of you about your overall lives and careers, but I really wanted people to see the impact that this kind of beautiful gourmet sex relationship has on your children as well. So thank you.
And it's really achievable. It's, yeah, for anyone. That's probably my biggest message, that it's not made up. It's work, but it's doable.
Anyone can do it.
Anyone can do it.
Anyone can do it. You just have to start. It's like anything. You just have to start and then do the work, a little bit of work to begin with, see what the results are.
Trust it.
And then lean in. So do the work.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Kim.
Very inspirational. I love these two. They are such great examples of how their connection really spreads out and feeds every part of their lives, including and especially their family and children. All of my salons teach the concepts that we have been speaking about, from clearing space between them to harvesting and using their sexual energy as a creative power. My Sexy Mama Salon goes deep into all things holistic pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. We cover everything from conscious conception to conscious parenting. You can check out my free video preview series at kimanami.com. Look for Sexual Savant Salons and then click on Sexy Mama. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, subscribe and also leave a review. And send someone else the gift of a healthy libido and an off-the-charts love life by sharing this episode with them. We'll be back next week, and in the meantime, many happy orgasms.